and welcome to the Squared Circle Psychobabble. My name is Michael Valenti. This is Ralph Valenti. We got a news roundup coming for you today, including AEW and TNT surveying wrestling fans about Dynamite, NXT on USA, WWE Raw and Smackdown, plus a possible return for Edge, and everything that just happened with Seth Rollins, Bray Wyatt, and the end of Hell in a Cell. Before we get to all that, though, make sure you subscribe, hit that bell for notifications for the best conversations in AEW, WWE, NXT, and New Japan Pro Wrestling. So, Ralph, let's start it off with this interesting survey that happened with AEW and TNT that was posted on Twitter Tuesday afternoon, where they basically were asking people what they liked from AEW Dynamite, what they liked from NXT USA, what they liked from Raw, what they liked from SmackDown, and of course, what they didn't like and what they thought of each show. It was a very interesting survey. You would think a lot of fans would be kind of negative to a survey like this, Ralph. What do you think of the interesting move with this survey?
Well, it's definitely interesting, and I think it's a good thing because it just continues to show that AEW is going to be committed to giving the fans what they want. I think, one of the biggest complaints about WWE is that they don't give the fans what they want a lot of the times, or do things that kind of necessarily make sense. And I think a good example of that was obviously this past weekend at Hell in a Cell, which I know we're going to get into that and dissect that a little bit. But it's reassuring and it's refreshing to see a company that is going to dedicate its product to really cater to the fans and the fan base and whatever their fans might be interested in the future going forward. So I think it's a good move for AEW. I think it's a smart on their behalf to just kind of show that, this is a wrestling company that is going to listen to the fans. I don't think they're going to cater to everybody's, everyone's wish or give everybody everything that they want. But at the very least, they're doing things to try and make it seem like they'll listen to their fan base, which is obviously one of the biggest pitfalls of WWE right now.
Yeah, a clear indication that they are listening to their fans, or at least trying to listen to their fans here. But I just find it very interesting that they are openly saying they are looking at what their fans thought of NXT, what their fans thought of Raw, what their fans thought of SmackDown. And the choices, you would think a survey like this, they would try to make it so that AEW would have the best results. But I got to be honest, I took the survey myself. I don't know if you did, Ralph, but the survey was pretty objective. Like, if you are a WWE fan, you can answer this honestly without it leaning towards AEW results.
Yeah, no, and again, I think that's smart on their behalf because they're trying to get a better understanding of the WWE loyal fans. Because let's be honest here. I mean, as of right now, WWE is still the biggest wrestling company in the world. AEW right now, they had their one show on TNT, and it had some pretty solid results as far as the ratings would indicate. And as far as the 18 to 39 demographic, 34. They were able to double. Nearly double whatever NXT did. So that's encouraging. That shows that there is for that main demographic, they did pretty strong. But as far as 50 plus, I think the numbers were in favor of NXT or heavily favored WWE products. So how can they attract those 50 plus or even, 18 or younger? Getting to understand the psychology of your the fan base of the WWE is only going to help them reach those fans and get those fans to tune into an AEW product as opposed to a WWE product. So, smart on their behalf. Again, I can't say it enough. It just goes to show that they're willing to listen to the fans.
Now, I will say one of the questions, if you haven't taken this survey yet, we will link it in the description below. One of the questions that was brought up was, what did you like about the previous show, what you didn't like about the show? And of course, they did this with each of the 4 shows. So one of the things, obviously, a lot of people are going to be talking about with Monday Night Raw this past Monday is the fact that after a very controversial ending to Hell in a Cell, we did not see either Seth Rollins or The Fiend on the episode in the 3 hours. And in fact, the only mention of the show, of that match, was at 10:30 Eastern time, 2.5 hours into the show. So obviously, if you're taking this survey and asking yourself, what is the worst thing that you saw on Monday Night Raw? I'm sure a lot of people are going to be saying that, Ralph.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because if you think about it, when do most people typically tune out of Monday Night Raw?
The last hour.
The third hour. I think this was done in an attempt, and as bad as Hell in the Cell was and the ending was, I think this was done in an attempt to try and reduce the amount of attention towards the negative outcome of the main event. Keeping Bray Wyatt off, obviously, that's going to upset people. I guess he did show up after Raw went off the air.
Yeah, that's true.
So, at least the live crowd got something out of it. I think this was really done in an attempt to help Seth Rollins, because I feel like if he went out there in front of a live crowd, just like he was booed at the end of the Hell in the Cell match, he was going to get booed. And I know this is something we're going to talk about a little bit, but I think in an attempt to protect everybody, the Fiend, Seth Rollins, they ended up hurting themselves, and they ended up hurting Seth Rollins and the Fiend more than anything. And I think keeping them off Monday Night Raw was really done in an attempt to, not draw any more attention, I should say, because everybody's been talking about it, not to draw any more attention to the negative feedback from Hell in a Cell.
Yeah, I mean, this was a very bad ending, Ralph. And I actually made the comparison off the air as this could be possibly the worst pay-per-view ending ever in WWE history, actually going up with WrestleMania 9. That's how bad I thought this was.
I think this is going to be one of those pay-per-views and the outcomes that we look back on as like an all-time low or an all-time, just a negative mark that it left on the WWE, really where the fans started to rebel. And it comes at a bad time, because at a time where WWE really was supposed to have a big week, the past 6 days have not been very good for them. When you look back at some of the feedback that they got from SmackDown, which SmackDown was a very good show, but, fans were upset because, he had Kofi lose in 5 seconds. They were upset because the live crowd, they didn't get not even the live crowd, but the people watching on TV. You didn't get Steve Austin, which was advertised. You didn't get Sting, and you didn't get The Undertaker. And then for the fans that attended live at SmackDown, you didn't even get to see 205 Live, which is something that they were told they were going to get as well. So that on the tail, as well as the negative feedback from the main event, or the outcome of the main event at Hell in a Cell. Really what should have been a great week with Fox and SmackDown having a successful show really turned into a really bad week for WWE.
I totally agree, Ralph. Totally agree. I mean, Raw wasn't that bad. And I'm not talking about, last night's Raw. I'm talking about the week before. It wasn't a terrible Raw. One of the better ones in the last few weeks or months. NXT was pretty solid.
NXT was very good.
NXT was good. SmackDown was even good. They just didn't like the Kofi Kingston finish. I wasn't a fan of the Lumberjack match either. But other than that, I thought the show was entertaining. Hell in a Cell, this is what happens when you put so much focus on premiere week. You forgot that there was a pay-per-view. And so they rushed all these matches on the card that really obviously had no build to them. Looks like there really no build after these matches. And of course, we get the ending that we got here with Bray Wyatt and Seth Rollins. And I think a lot of people, when taking this survey that AEW put out there and TNT put out there, I think this is going to be mentioned a lot. I think with SmackDown, people are going to be mentioning that Kofi Kingston losing in 7 seconds was something that they disliked. People might even say, no Stone Cold Steve Austin, no Sting, no Undertaker is going to be something that in this survey, people will write down. With AEW, it's going to be hard to really write down what you disliked about the show. I was actually able to write something down. I did not like that Nyla Rose went and put Riho over, and we don't need to go over that again. But, out of the 4 shows between Dynamite, NXT, SmackDown, and this past Raw, would you say Dynamite was the best of the 4?
I would say that Dynamite held my attention the best, and I don't know if that's because it was the very first episode of AEW, because NXT was very good, and I thought SmackDown was very good, and I don't think people should always have to choose between NXT or AEW. I think they were all good for different reasons. I thought AEW definitely felt like a fresh product. I appreciated the crowd. I appreciated the ambiance and the vibrance and how loud the crowd was and the colors and everything else. It had a very different feel from NXT. As far as the best wrestling throughout the past week, I think that NXT had the best wrestling of any of the shows. I thought AEW put on a very good show and there were some very good matches. Probably the best match of that was Sammy Guevara and Cody Rhodes, in my opinion. But I thought NXT had the best in-ring performances, of everything. The most talked about segments, if you want to call them that, was probably the run-in with Braun Strowman and Tyson Fury on SmackDown. I thought their Raw run-in was a little clunky. The pull-apart brawl.
The pull-apart brawl
overstayed its welcome. Tyson Fury looked a little, stiff, rough around the edges. He didn't look natural in there. Definitely could tell he was out of his element. And obviously the Cain Velasquez confrontation with Brock Lesnar was also a very talked about segment. So one of the things that I think that I've certainly noticed is whenever something goes right for AEW or something goes wrong for WWE, those things usually get clumped together in any of the articles that get written. So say, for example, AEW has a great night as far as ratings are concerned. There's always a negative comparison to WWE and vice versa. So every time AEW has good publicity, there is bad publicity for WWE mixed in. And I think that's something that is really starting to hurt WWE, because every time you read something positive about what AEW is doing, whether it's the presentation, the ratings, the in-ring performances, or how bad Hell in a Cell is, you think about Hell in a Cell and how bad the ending of that was. The first thing you're going to read is fans were chanting AEW. So it just goes to show you, like, as big as WWE is, even when they have negative feedback or articles written about them, there's going to be positives written about AEW, and it's not even done intentionally. So they're getting attention all around.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree with that. And the big thing about this whole Wednesday Night Wars, AEW versus WWE thing is, it seems like everybody wants to choose a side, whether that is WWE or AEW. But the thing is, the way technology works, you don't have to choose a side. And the survey, believe it or not, kind of hinted at this, because one of the questions that they asked was, how did you watch the show? Did you watch it live? Did you watch YouTube clips? Did you DVR it? Or did you do something else that we did not listed? I think that's a huge, huge question that TNT or AEW, whoever can actually put this survey together, if it was a joint thing or just TNT or whoever, that's a huge question, because we talk about ratings all the time, and we've had our discussion almost a year ago, the original episode about ratings and how I said ratings don't matter. And I brought this up, like, people don't consume, television and shows like they did in the 90s. So that's why ratings drop.
Yeah. They're consuming content in various forms, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, wherever. People aren't always just watching the shows live on TV or through some streaming anymore.
No, I agree. I agree. And, I don't think we'll ever get the actual results of the survey unless, it gets leaked out to one of the reporters, whether that's Meltzer or Mike Johnson of PW Insider, anybody. But I think at the end of the day, I think AEW is going to like the results that they get from the survey, obviously, because the active fan base of AEW will probably be the ones that answer this more than those that hate AEW or are pro WWE. But
yeah, if you're a strong AEW fan, or even if you're a fan that is disgruntled with WWE, that just goes to show you how important it is for AEW to be successful, because finally there is competition for WWE. And the thought is, if they continue to grow, if they continue to get big and attract, sponsorships, and the ratings continue to grow and all of that type of stuff, it holds WWE accountable. And the things like you saw on Sunday night become less and less likely. That's why you want AEW to be successful. And that's why you don't, even the fans of AEW, I hear people say all the time, oh, Vince is old and out of touch, and all that stuff may be true, but you don't want WWE to go out of business. People shouldn't be saying things like that. You want both of the companies to be successful. You shouldn't have to pick between the two. If you enjoy one or the other, that's fine. DVR the other one and watch it when you have some free time, or don't watch it at all. But AEW is very important for the wrestling industry right now. If for no other reason other than it's competition for WWE, and one would think as long as they continue to be successful, it should hold WWE accountable for all the mistakes that they've been making over the past 10 or so odd years, are just even in comparison to the other night with the poor ending to Hell in a Cell.
No, that ending, like I said, that is up there with WrestleMania 9 as the worst ending of a pay-per-view in WWE history.
Yeah. I compared it to Daniel Bryan not winning. The year that Daniel Bryan was crazy over, everyone thought that he should have won the Royal Rumble. And it was probably the best. He went on to main event WrestleMania and win the title either way, but we know that they put Batista over.
Right.
I consider that one of the poor decisions over the last 20 years, because when you think about it, it's just kind of like, well, we're going to do what we feel is best. We know better than the fans. And it goes against everything that they said. I mean, remember when they had this whole thing of like rebooting the product, and the whole McMahon family was out there talking about have the fans have the power,
or
turning over power to you. Is there nothing more over than the Fiend? Like, I just don't understand.
Here's the thing.
I don't get it.
Here's the thing that's great too, because if the fans are the authority and you hear them chanting, restart match, restart match, restart match, restart the match.
Or refund, or AEW. I mean, there's more than enough chants or examples to go by that can indicate that you're not giving your fan base what they want. And I'm not saying that you have to cater to the fans all the time, because I think do think there are certain examples, like when Kofi Kingston first challenged for the title, everybody said they should have put the belt on him without letting the story kind of evolve and progress. Stuff like that. Like, there should be a certain line where you draw and say, okay, we need to have patience. We need to let the storyline develop and stuff like that. But, when you have, and this is a comparison I made to you, when Stone Cold Steve Austin wasn't crazy over, but he was certainly over. Imagine if they said, well, we are not so sure about this. We're just going to let Stone Cold Steve Austin lose to HBK at WrestleMania. And, we'll fix it down the road. We've seen that with countless guys. They've tried to do that with countless guys. And the most recent one is The Fiend. You can't always get your momentum back. It's very hard to do that, especially when you partially humanize a character like The Fiend. And not only that, are we forgetting that all of a sudden a sledgehammer is like the worst thing to use in a match? And it's this whole thing where Triple H made a whole freaking career off hitting people with a sledgehammer. Now it's too much.
And hold on. One, he used it multiple times in Hell in a Cell matches. And two, Bray Wyatt had a oversized mallet that Dio Madden actually said killed Rambling Rabbit.
Yeah,
now, obviously,
it's a no-brainer.
Rambling Rabbit's a sock puppet, and Seth Rollins is a 215-pound professional wrestler. Yes, I get the,
Yeah.
But
and I also get this isn't the Attitude Era, but we also nearly saw Mick Foley die twice, outside the ring when he was thrown from the Hell in a Cell, and inside the ring when he got chokeslammed through it. So to think that, somebody getting hit with a sledgehammer, well, of course that can't really happen in real life. It's not like it's outside the realm of anything we've seen before in wrestling. We've certainly seen much worse, and we've probably seen stuff on this pay-per-view alone that is even comparable to it. Like you said, with the mallet, Becky and Sasha certainly had some rough spots in their matches. So it just, none of it makes sense. And that's the biggest issue, I think, with WWE. They do things that don't make sense, and they try to protect people. And when they try to protect people, usually it ends up biting themselves in the ass all the time.
Now, speaking of protecting people, there is, it brings me to our last bit of news that we're going to talk about here, Ralph. And that is, over the weekend, we got this rumor circulating. Dave Meltzer reported that Edge has signed a deal with WWE, and Edge has gone on to his podcast with Christian saying that he's leaving the show, focusing on other things. And obviously this is speculating that he is coming back to the ring and being a part of WWE. Now, he went on to Twitter negating those rumors, but Tuesday afternoon, we get a report from PW Insider Mike Johnson saying that Edge was in Pittsburgh to speak with Dr. Maroon, Joseph Maroon, who is the head doctor of WWE. And if all things are good, he's coming back to WWE. Now, do you think this is, in fact, a shoot, or a work on the rumors?
Well, you're putting me on the spot here, but I'm going to say this cat loves to be in the show because every time we record, he jumps in the scene. But I'm going to say this is probably a work. I think that from everything we know, Edge was certainly in negotiations with WWE in some capacity. The other rumor is he was also in negotiations with AEW. Now, the rumor is he either actually went to AEW as negotiating with them, or he just told WWE that in order to get a bigger contract. Either way, smart on his behalf. Now, right. Do we see him return to the ring? I don't know. I don't know what there's left for him to prove unless he really just has the itch to come back.
Yep.
I know he's in very good shape because he's been getting himself in shape the last several months. If you follow his Instagram, you could see the pictures. He's got himself in really good shape.
Oh yeah, like the best shape of his life.
That doesn't necessarily mean he's getting himself in shape to return to the ring. With that being said, I mean, with wrestling, you can never say never. People said Daniel Bryan was never going to return. He made a return. People said Shawn Michaels wouldn't return from his back injury back in the day. He made his way back to the ring. So it's certainly happened where people have come back to the ring after saying, they're too hurt to compete. They can't get cleared, whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say no, because it seems like these types of rumors get started quite often,
right.
Especially when you think about Stone Cold Steve Austin. How many times have you heard he's supposed to return to the ring?
We just heard it recently. We heard it recently. He wants to have one more match. So here's the thing. Like, it also depends on the type of injury we're talking about here. This isn't like Shawn Michaels and his back injury that, he healed over 4 years, felt like he can work safe again, and obviously did excellent. And it's Shawn Michaels, for crying out loud. Not knocking Edge, because Edge is a great wrestler himself, but the injury that he has not only retired wrestlers, but other professional athletes. This is the injury that retired Paige. This is the injury that retired in other sports David Wright from the New York Mets, countless NFL players. Spinal stenosis is not something to mess around with. And even if he feels good and feels like he can go one more match or whatever, one slip and he's in a wheelchair for life.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't make sense for him, especially when you consider where he's at in his life and what he's done. He's done everything he needs to do within the wrestling industry. He's been to the top of the mountain in WWE multiple times.
Right.
He's going to go into the Hall of Fame, so he doesn't need to worry about that.
Isn't he? He's in already.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. He is in the Hall of Fame. Already. So either way, he's in the Hall of Fame. But he's accomplished so much. He's a family man. He's got kids. He's got a wife. He's got his podcast that's going for him. If he chooses to go back to that, I mean, I don't know. I'm going to say no for right now. I don't see him coming back.
No, I'm going to agree with you there. So let us know in the comments what you think, if Edge will return to WWE or, in fact, anything in professional wrestling. Also, let us know your comments. And if you took the survey for AEW on TNT, let us know what you put down for the answers in the survey in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, share it all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. And for the best conversations in AEW, WWE, NXT, and New Japan Pro Wrestling, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. For Ralph Valenti, my name's Michael Valenti. Thank you for watching the Squared Circle Psychobabble.